Tate Center parking lot is a part of our Kroger Kickoff. Hello, everybody. I'm Brandon Adams. Thanks so much for being a part of our DawgNation video channel coverage of the dog walk here in just a couple of minutes. Now, a lot of you have been with us for these before, and normally you're kind of used to seeing thousands of people gather around me in every direction, getting ready to welcome in UGA. Not exactly the same thing here today. It is raining pretty hard. It is windy and it is cold, but there's still a pretty good number of Georgia fans who are in position to see this. Obviously, the Georgia players who normally spend their time shaking hands and saying hello, kind of going slowly down the line of the railing. Today, they may move a little bit quicker as they head to where they need to be inside the stadium to get warm, get dressed, and be on this field for the kickoff against the Kentucky Wildcats coming up at 6 p.m. But we'll be able to show it to you live as it happens here. We'll also be able to take your comments here as well as part of our Kroger Kickoff here as well on both Facebook and YouTube as we check in on this here tonight with the Georgia Bulldogs Kentucky Wildcats coming up at 6 p.m. Now, rain has been coming in Athens all day long today. Difficult to tell how it exactly might impact the game that will be played later on. Of course, the field is that kind of turtleback field, so there'll be plenty of opportunity for the rain to kind of wash off of that. So in terms of soaked conditions on the field, maybe not quite the case. Footballs will be hard to keep those dry, which means passing game will obviously be impacted by that. And for a Georgia team that likes to run the football anyway, that's obviously playing into their game plan as it is. And Kentucky, given the injuries they've had at quarterback, given the athleticism they potentially have if Lynn Bowden's back there, it also kind of plays into their game plan a little bit too. So maybe kind of an old school football game tonight with both of these teams content to keep it on the ground, try to limit mistakes. Of course, every Georgia fan remembers the 4 turnovers that doomed the Dogs against the Gamecocks last Saturday. So we'll talk about everything that's going to happen to part of our the game tonight here as a part of our Kroger Kickoff here. And we'll see the dog walk coming up in really about 5 minutes or so. The Georgia players should be coming through. So we'll take some time to check in on Facebook and YouTube and talk to you about all of this. As we do, I'll say thanks to Kroger for making all this possible. Of course, you can check in on Kroger as you get ready for your game watching party here today. Not as many tailgates around campus today as you're typically used to seeing. I know a lot of folks will be looking forward to kind of having an indoor tailgate here today. And, of course, Kroger, a great way to get stocked up for all of that there as well. So checking in here on Facebook for a moment to kind of find out what people have on their mind. I know they're eager to see the Dogs back on the field today. Obviously, as last week's game was a bad memory for many, this is a chance to kind of write a new memory on that and a chance for Georgia to kind of reestablish some momentum as it heads towards the world's largest outdoor cocktail party in a couple of weeks against the Florida Gators. And, of course, I'm sure you're aware Florida did win today against South Carolina, getting the benefit of, I'll say as objectively as possible, some generous officiating at times there, but a pretty impressive performance to go on the road to Williams-Brice Stadium, come away with a win. That is what Florida was able to do today. And so with that in mind, we'll take more of your comments here. Justin Glaze says South Carolina gave Florida all they could handle. And, yeah, I mean, obviously there was a moment in time there where it looked like South Carolina might be able to keep that game closer. I didn't get to see a ton of it because I was en route here to be in Athens here today, but you certainly got a sense for a while there that South Carolina might be able to keep this one close. As I said before, Florida benefits from a little bit of some generous officiating, and they go on to get the victory there after that. Billy Hurley says the rain didn't stop Florida and USC from throwing it. Hope we don't continue our conservative offensive strategy. And, Billy, obviously it's conventional wisdom to say both these teams are going to try to run it a lot. I don't think it's going to be an exclusive run-dominated offense for either one of these two teams here today. Georgia, for what it's worth, and commonly practices with wet football. So Jake Fromm, the other quarterbacks, holding wet footballs, throwing those. That's something that Georgia does, not just in weeks where rain's expected, but really, throughout the season as a way to being comfortable in that situation when it arises, because over the course of a 12-game season in the fall, you expect weather to be a factor in at least one of those games. This is the kind of thing that Georgia practices for on the regular. So they won't be prohibited from throwing the ball at all today, but for a team in Georgia that likes to run the ball as it is, it might be reasonable to assume they might try to run it just a little bit more here today. More Facebook comments rolling in. Matt Rukavina says, how are the conditions? Doesn't look monsoon bad. No, it has not been monsoon bad as of yet. It has not rained like monsoon hard. Now, as I say that, I hope I don't dare it to start raining that hard. What it has been doing is, and I reckon since early this morning, I've seen some of the reports on Twitter as early as, say, 7 o'clock this morning, it's been raining. So that's been the issue. It hasn't really been that sort of monsoon, tropical storm type rain that you sometimes see where it's almost bouncing back up off the ground as hard as it's hitting the ground. It's just been raining steady. I was coming from my home in the Atlanta area this morning. It was already raining. It rained the entire time I was here, and it's been raining in Athens all day long. So so not raining all that hard, but raining constant. It's also pretty cold. Now, I don't think that affects the players all that much. It's one of those things where, like, the temperature reading is probably only, low 50s. Based on the thermostat, that doesn't sound quite so cold, but when you mix it with the rain, it feels a little colder than it, otherwise the thermometer might be reading out. I've got several layers on right now, and I'm glad I have each and every one of them. I'm actually wearing 3 pairs of socks, if you really want to know the honest truth here, and every single one of those layers is coming in handy for me. It's that kind of day here around Athens. Rainy, not raining hard, but spitting rain pretty continuously. Cold, and that's kind of what's going on there. Cheyenne Taylor Lagarza says, cut them loose, Kirby, and obviously that's what a lot of Georgia fans are hoping for, and I guess the question becomes, and it's a source of curiosity for me as much as it is for anybody else, is weather like this, conditions like this, does it allow Georgia and Kirby to so-called, cut loose? And at some point in time, that's probably what it's going to take for Georgia, and we'll see if today provides an opportunity to do just that. Glenn Riding says, time for our offensive line to assert itself. We need to dominate the line of scrimmage, and boy, that's something a lot of Georgia fans would like to be able to see. Statistically, the Georgia offensive line's had a good year. They have certainly opened up a lot of holes for a running game that has, for the most part, been very successful. A lot of folks will point out some pass rush situations where pressure was put on Jake Fromm last week, and short yardage situations where maybe the Georgia offensive line hasn't quite been as assertive as you'd want for it to be. But the notion of this group being assertive, today would be a great day for that to happen, just given the conditions that are in place. I think that's a really good comment. Donald Talent says, go Bulldogs. We'll be watching on TV. I'm guessing that there are a lot of folks who typically are between the hedges here at Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium that might be content to watch this one on TVs today as the homecoming court comes by here. It is homecoming here in Athens today for the night game. A lot of the homecoming folks are all dressed up, but unfortunately their suits and dresses have to be covered up by rain gear with it raining as much as it is right now. Christopher Wilson checking in from New York City. Great to see you, Christopher, as a part of our program. Zach Smith says, I just hope we attack the perimeter in the running game today. Let's toss, sweep, some screens, some counters. And, yeah, I think a lot of Georgia fans are also hoping for that there as well. One of the frustrations about the last week's game plan was the fact that so much of that, the running plays that were called, were seemingly running plays up the middle. You obviously would love to see some outside runs, and obviously that's what Georgia hopes to be able to do here today. Let me pull up some YouTube comments while I have a chance. The buses are also here, which means the dog walk itself will be beginning in just a moment. And we'll certainly see how quickly this group comes by here today, knowing that the weather is as bad as it is right now. So we'll check in on YouTube. We'll see the Georgia Bulldogs come walking by here in just a moment. And then it's Georgia-Kentucky after that at 6 p.m. tonight. And, of course, after the game, don't forget about our Pella Window post-game show right there at the UGA bookstore. If you're here and you want to come by and see us after the game, we'd love to be able to see you there. And speaking of being able to see, you'll be able to see these Georgia coaches and players come by in just a moment as a part of the dog walk. Thanks for being here on our Kroger Kickoff. Of course, we're only a couple of weeks away from Halloween. That means getting stocked up on your candy and your decorations and everything else at your local Atlanta Kroger. You can check all of that out. Here on YouTube here for a moment, Enrique Murillo checking in. Thinking the Dogs going to be chomping at the bit to be on the field here today, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. This is going to be a Georgia football team ready to get back at it and ready to get back in action. It's raining so hard now I can hardly read my comments off my phone screen. Dimitri Sullivan checking in. Good to see him. Byron Dean Butler says he's here for the first time this year. That's great to see. You see the Georgia cheerleaders walking by. They're ready to have a great time today, and they're ready to bring the spirit and the enthusiasm. They've got their rain gear on there as well, but they're certainly ready to bring it for the crowd that's gathered here at Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium. You're going to see Harry Dawg come by in your screen here in just a moment. Harry Dawg going to stop by and say hello to these kids, and obviously everybody always glad to see him. And the first player to walk by is Cade Mays. Andrew Thomas sporting a umbrella. Ben Cleveland shortly after that. Brian Harry, and also walking by with an umbrella, seeming to be in good health, at least visually. Here comes DeAndre Swift. Nice trench coat for him. Players coming by much more quickly than normal. No umbrella for Charlie Werner. There's offensive coordinator James Coley and Dan Lanning. They both have their umbrellas in hand. Several of the dignitaries here stopping by to shake hands and say hello, including offensive line coach Sam Pittman. Umbrella, but still smiling and saying hello to folks. Stetson Bennett, he won't be using an umbrella right now. Georgia continuing to roll through. Trey Blunt coming by here. There's Jarvis Jones, one of the student assistants. There comes Richard LeCount looking dapper, umbrella in hand for him. Jake Cole has a hat on. That's pretty cool. N'Kobe Dean also looking sharp as per usual. Got his umbrella in hand. A little bit different version of the dog walk. Over the course of the season, you have lots of different ones of these. Road games, home games, everything else. Today's the rain version of that. There's George Pickens coming by. Dog fans hope he's a big part of this game plan here today. I saw Nolan Smith come by. You saw him on your screen a moment ago. More players continue to roll by here. Some using the umbrellas to block the windy rain as it kind of rolls through. Wet conditions. Pretty good crowd, though, settling in. There's Zamir White. He's having a good time, smiling, taking some time to high fives. Julian Rochester standing next to him. Here comes Malik Herring. Malik not afraid of a little rain. Adam Anderson coming by. Adam wearing the sunglasses, looking pretty good there. So plenty of fashion out here, despite the fact that the rain has definitely given you a little bit different feel to the dog walk overall. So you see Georgia, game face is on, ready for the game against the Kentucky Wildcats. They're big favorites. We'll be following the game throughout the day in the forum at forum.dawgnation.com and on dawgnation.com. And then after the game, as part of our Pella Window post-game show at the UGA bookstore, I'm Brandon Adams. Thanks for being a part of this. Don't forget to check out Kroger for all your game day needs and everything as you head towards the Halloween season of the year. Thanks for being a part of our Kroger Kickoff. We'll talk to you again in hopefully drier condition next time.